Okay, so real quick one here for my year 11s. This is a request from one of my students who's asked me to give a model answer for the set text exam. I did this one very quickly last night, so it's possibly not the full thing and the most amazing thing you're ever going to see, but this will show you what the writing should look like. So, how would I approach the writing the set text exam? I went with the extract question just for this practice so you can see what it looks like. And I just went with a random page and I start with page number 1 to make things nice and simple. So just to read through it very quickly. The thing is, I really wasn't expecting her to go because when you're 10 years old and getting ready for bed on a night that's just like any other, no darker or starrier or more silent or more full of smells than usual, with the familiar sound of the muezzins calling the faithful to prayer. So that's where it starts on page 1, the very beginning of the novel. And I just looked at that first part where it goes to the end where it mentions, I promise. We're going to use this as the extract, which you've all got the book. If you're studying the text, I'm sure you've all got it. We're going to do this very quick. So I would practice doing some writing with a general question, as if you've seen my other videos, I've suggested. And a general question that would work really well with this one is, how is this extract such a movingly powerful introduction to the novel? So the idea of the extract question is usually, how is this section very powerful? And that's what we're looking at. All right, so what I've tried to do is I'm trying to give you a bit of a model. This is how I think my way through it if I'm in the set text exam, and how would I formulate my response. So this is basically 2 minutes off the top of my head. It's just what jumps out at me and how I'm going to answer that question. If I'm in the exam, I'm not going to write this down, but I want to try and show you what my thought process is. So this is just free association, what I was thinking when I first read through that. And what jumped at me straight away is that it is masterfully crafted. He's using a lot of techniques here to make it just the way he wants it. That creates suspense and empathy right from the beginning. So that answers the question, how is it movingly powerful? By creating suspense and empathy. So I'm giving that as my kind of personal response to this. I've decided it's movingly powerful because of that suspense it creates, the ambiguity, the uncertainty, the miscommunication, just the suspense of it all, and this idea that that's helping to create real empathy. We feel for the main character. We're not sure what is happening, but it's clearly a moment of great contemplation where someone is leaving. Then it zooms into the imagery that captures us in the romanticism of the everyday special moments of night and stars and the faithful at prayer, and then the empathy of the appeals to age, 10 years old is repeated, and the use of the personal pronoun, putting you into it, and the extended run-on sentence really puts you into the feeling of a child breaking down, or at least struggling to deal with the emotion of their mother leaving. And the use of the language, the foreign language, the yan or yan or jan, I'm not sure how to say it, but that foreign language, and the ellipses, the dot, dot, dot. They also work to familiarize things and to put silences and breaks in there to make us feel like a questioning, a halting, a hesitant feeling. Defamiliarizes it and makes it feel strange, suspenseful. Makes us feel the moments of confusion. Then the contrast with the short, sharp sentences at the end. It breaks us out of this deep longing for understanding. He's kind of goes into that moment where it slows right down and he's wants to understand what's going on. And at the end, those sharp sentences breaks us out, gives us this shocking, suspenseful feeling, and the confusion and the deep sadness, and throws us. Sorry, must have been going very quickly here. Throws us into the suspense of remembering the promises. Okay, so I did this 2 minutes. That was just what came off the top of my head. Normally, I wouldn't be writing that down. I'd just be highlighting as I read, writing a few little words. So I probably would have got a lot more than just that little bit if I was doing the quick exam. But for this purpose, we're okay. So there's obviously more that I can pull out of that. I can't get everything though. And these are the big ideas that answer the question for me. So I'm feeling pretty good. I've got some good stuff to write. Okay, so the next step after that is, how do we shape this into a response that could possibly get us those really high grades. Okay, so my go-to for this in an exam, really short introduction, does a couple of things, then just jump into your answer and just go with it, and then short conclusion at the end. It's not perfect, but this was done under very much time conditions, and just this is how I'd go if it was exams. Okay, so if I'm shaping it into what you want to do is make sure that you're echoing the question in that very topic sentence in the very beginning of your response. So the author has made this introduction to the novel so powerfully moving by, this echoes, I'm clearly answering the question, masterfully creating an opening that creates suspense and empathy within the reader. I could go further. I could say it does this, but we're going to get to that, and it's in an exam, so I'm going to move very quickly. The author creates the sense of suspense by making the beginning mysterious and throwing the reader straight into the action. The reader is not sure what is happening exactly in the highly descriptive scene. However, it's clearly a moment of great contemplation where someone is grappling with the sad moment of someone leaving. So there's my personal response very clearly. It's powerful because of the confusion, okay, and the suspense that's going on. We want to know what's happening. We're going to read on. Also, adding things like highly descriptive adds that little bit more to it. The sadness also adds that sense of empathy, sadness. The sadness is also obviously fused with confusion and misunderstanding, which is created through the ambiguity of the action. This comes through in the close-ups, the diverse images. Okay, so now we're starting to get, these are some of the techniques. The author has made it sad, creating empathy, created suspenseful through confusion. I'm being clear about what I think. If I had time, probably I'd be more clear, but in an exam, I think this will be okay. And now we're getting to the techniques. It comes through in the close-ups of diverse images. All in one sentence, the author moves the reader's eye from night, no darker or starrier or more silent, to muezzins calling the faithful to prayer, to minarets just like anywhere else. This chaotic movement captures the confusion of the moment and leaves the reader in suspense. So you get that idea that you're feeling like you're in a kind of a movie scene where the camera is bouncing around and you're not sure what's going on, what's going to happen. Moreover, the irony for many readers of the unfamiliar sights expressed as familiar, the kind of just like anywhere else, no minarets where I am, but so you get that sense of expressed as familiar would also be adding to the confusion, with the diction of muezzins and minarets being unfamiliar to Getter's mostly foreign readership. The tone also amplifies the feeling of sadness, suspense, and confusion as it blends the romantic vision of special moments of nights and stars. It's a beautiful image. And faithful at prayer with the insistence of the usual and unexpected occurrence on a normal day. This encourages the reader to feel a sense of the grandeur of life, a sense that this is a big and serious moment that will shock the narrator on this ordinary occasion. This positions the reader to feel empathy for Anayat and then amplifies his appeal with a repetition of 10 years of age and the use of the personal pronoun you, and further the close bodily image of the mother in the tender like takes your head and holds it against her breast, all putting the reader into the shoes of the child being abandoned. Further to this, the broken syntax of the extended run-on sentence really helps to put the reader into the feeling of a child breaking down and struggling to deal with the emotion of a mother leaving. The use of the foreign language Jan and the ellipses, ... also really work to defamiliarize the reader and make them feel the moment of confusion and therefore suspense and empathy for the poor child. Finally, the contrast with the short, sharp sentence at the end, don't believe them and promise me you won't do it, break the reader out of the deep longing for understanding and further emphasizes the confusion and deep sadness and suspense of the narrator remembering the promises of his sadly absent mother. So we start with confusion, we're not sure what's happening, then we build into sadness, and in the end we feel this deep sadness. And then we have a very quick conclusion to this. In this way, the author has made this introduction to the novel so powerfully moving by masterfully crafting an opening that creates suspense and empathy within the reader. Okay, so it's not perfect, but the things that the examiner is looking for, and you should know by now your mark scheme. We've got in the beginning very clear personal response. It could be clearer, but it works. The authors made this powerful and moving by creating confusion, mystery, suspense, and that builds to create empathy. We feel sad for the main character, very clearly stated. We've got lots of techniques coming up through here, sentences referenced. We've also got images referenced. We've also got irony referenced. We've also got the kind of juxtaposition. I could have said juxtaposition between romantic visions and the everyday. Probably should have said juxtaposition, but I didn't. Then we've got appeals through the language, repetition, personal pronouns, syntax, foreign language, ellipses. So I've covered a lot of different techniques and shown you I know a range of techniques. I really tried to embed those quotations. It's not here's a long quotation I'm going to talk about for 5 minutes. It is here's my argument and here's a little bit of a quotation and here's a technique and analysis. Here is a little bit of a quotation, analysis, quotation, analysis, quotation, analysis. And throughout, it may not be as obvious, but definitely has the author intended this to happen and the reader responded with this. So not a perfect response, and I'm very much out of practice. And just to show you that in exam conditions, you don't need to be perfect. But the idea is good, strong, personal response, and then lots of embedded quotations. And my extract was short, yours is going to be longer, but you should be in more practice than I am and have more time than I have. So lots of those short references to the text, lots of techniques. The author intended this to happen and the reader responded in this way. And I think that's going to get us to those top levels. Not perfect, and sorry, I keep flicking backwards and forwards. Not perfect, but that should give you the idea.